My girlfriend is planning to move in with me with her 4 children, but she told me that she doesn't like my daughter as the queen of the house, so I kicked her to the curb. My daughter Stacy has one of the 2 rooms in my house with an en-suite bathroom. It's a largish room with a nice bay window. Obviously very nice. I've recently become engaged to my girlfriend of 3 years, Alice, and her landlord has recently hiked her rent, so we're planning to have her move in with me. She has some kids. She has 2 daughters and 2 sons. She is also pregnant, and our daughter is due in about 5 months. I've made it absolutely clear to my daughter, as a condition of getting her approval on moving my girlfriend in, that she is allowed to keep her room, and she is also allowed to have a full lock on her door. My daughter plans to go to school locally, and I have told her in no uncertain terms that she's welcome to live at home for the rest of my life, and after that she can inherit the house. I bought the house with her mother and paid it off in large part with her mother's life insurance 10 years ago, so it only seems fair. She says she's alright as long as she has her room and bathroom and is allowed to put a lock on her door. Stacy will be giving up a room she's currently using as a studio project space. She does art, videos, voiceovers, etc. So even her larger room will become a bit more cramped, and she'll definitely need the extra space she has. There will be a bedroom for Alice's girls, Stacy's old project room, and Alice's boys, who will be getting an old room. I will be putting in a finished nursery bedroom in the basement for our new daughter. Alice thinks that this is unfair. She thinks it was wrong of me to decide without her. And she also thinks that she should move her 2 daughters into Stacy's room, and that Stacy should have to move to the smaller room they'll be getting. The 2 of them already share a smaller room than the one I'm moving them into, so they're getting an upgrade regardless. Alice thinks that it's not fair for Stacy to have a bathroom all day herself, and that there won't be enough bathrooms for everyone else. She also disapproves of Stacy being able to lock everyone out. There were other smaller things she didn't like that I agreed to with Stacy, like the fact that she is to be paid for any babysitting, or that my older car. Her mom's old car is hers when she gets her driver's license. We'll have our own bathroom in the master bedroom, and the house has 3 other bathrooms besides, 1 on each floor, 1 near what will be her girls' room, 1 not far from what will be the boys' room, and 1 little basically be directly next to the newly finished room. I told Alice that my deal with Stacy is non-negotiable, set in stone, and that it's literally a condition of her even moving in. Alice is upset that Stacy and I have spaces completely dedicated to ourselves. I have my office, which I need because I work from home and have projects besides, and there aren't many other spaces to put people. I told her she could pretty much do what she wanted in the living room, but that it is what it was and there was pretty much nothing to be done about it. A bigger house is not an option unless Alice is going to start making a hell of a lot more money and buy her own bigger house. It's already a pretty big house, and housing is expensive. I told her that she was already getting a break by my only expecting her to contribute 15 or 20% to household bills. If we were doing it proportionately, it would be more like 25% to 30%. We keep separate finances, and we've agreed to a prenup. Alice just seems upset that I won't change the setup, even though there's no real way to change it. And she's accused me of treating Stacy like a spoiled little princess and letting her be queen of the house. Frankly, my daughter comes first. She's lived here all her life, and I already know it will be a big adjustment having all these other kids move in. As much as I love Alice, and as much as I want our relationship to work out, if it's a matter of choosing between the 2 of them, then my relationship with Alice is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I've told her that if she comes into this with wicked stepmother vibes, and that'll be the end of things, she thinks I'm being unreasonable. It was Friday, and Stacy texted me asking for her allowance. I was with Alice then, and I went ahead and let the subject come up. I give Stacy $100 a week. Alice thinks that this is crazy and excessive. She thinks it's improper and brought it up as an example of how she thinks I'm raising Stacy like a spoiled princess. She said as much again when I told her I was sending Stacy her allowance. But this time, Alice also asked if her kids would get the same allowance after we get married. I told her that someday our new daughter would probably get an allowance just like Stacy does, but that there was no way I had any plans of shelling out an extra $400 a week for her other kids. Alice got upset. She said that Stacy wasted my money on shoes and makeup. She has previously criticized Stacy for wearing fancy sneakers, high heels, and makeup, and she said that I was showing favoritism and that that is a form of abuse. She complained about me letting Stacy buy things with my credit card and store my credit card on her phone. When I didn't even let Alice do that, she said that whatever money would go to the kids should be split evenly amongst them. When I shrugged and told her that that wasn't going to happen and that I wasn't going to cut Stacy's allowance, she snapped at me. She said that a man living alone with his daughter and doting on her like I do is creepy and incestuous. And she said, "You've just replaced your dead wife with your daughter, and you need to stop." That was it. Sure, I've ignored many red flags until now, but that was it. She started trying to tell me about how it was unhealthy for me to be so close with Stacy, how she didn't want her kids to be neglected, and how she wanted to be treated as an equal if we were getting married. Still, I interrupted her, and I told her that I didn't think we should be getting married. I told her that I didn't want her moving in, and that we would need to work something else out. To be perfectly honest, my sister, my brother, and some of my friends have expressed some of the same misgivings about Alice that I've read, although they were generally much more gentle about it. I was in love with her. In fact, I'm still in love with her, and I wasn't seeing things clearly. I told her that I would always make sure that our child had a roof over her head, but that she was going to have to work something out for herself and her kids on her own. Obviously, we had a huge fight. She screamed at me. She called me a heartless bastard. She blamed Stacy for trying to sabotage our relationship. She guilt-tripped me about her cost of living and how I was in an empty house all by myself. She also guilt-tripped me about the stress on the baby, and I actually do feel bad and worry about that. She eventually broke down crying and told me to leave. In the past 10 years, this was my first relationship with a woman that became serious. I love her and this hurts. It hurts a hell of a lot. I told Stacy that she didn't have to bother moving her stuff out of the other room and that Alice wasn't coming, and we hugged. She asked if this was her fault, and I told her no. I told her I honestly feel like marrying Alice would have been a mistake, even if the two of them could have been best buddies. I always wanted to have a few more kids and missed having a wife, but things don't always happen the way we want, so I'm pretty sure my relationship with Alice is effectively over. Even if we're raising a child together for the foreseeable future, I'm not sorry to be having another kid, even if I really wish the circumstances could be better. The red flags were always there. I guess it's better that I notice them now instead of later. After ending my relationship with Alice, life at home returned to normal, or rather the way it always should have been. Stacy, of course, was relieved. She kept her room, with its private bathroom and lock, and I reassured her that no matter what happened, this house would always be hers, and I'd do everything to make sure no one ever disrupted her peace again. To celebrate the end of all the stress, I decided to treat her to something special. We went to the mall, intending to pick up a small gift, but she ended up leaving with a brand new phone, imported sneakers, and a designer handbag that cost nearly $1,000. To me, it was just compensation for the discomfort Alice had caused. "You're the best, Dad," she said, beaming, and that's all that mattered to me. As time passed, we settled into our usual rhythm. Stacy continued working on her art, videos, and voiceovers in her project studio. Since she needed peace and quiet, I created a new rule. I could only work from my office until a certain time of day to avoid disturbing her creativity. If I needed to do anything afterward, I'd use headphones to ensure she wasn't bothered. She didn't have to do any household chores either. The housekeeper, who came twice a week, took care of everything, including Stacy's laundry. I once suggested that maybe Stacy should learn basic skills like cooking, but she laughed and rolled her eyes. "That's why you have a house, Dad," she said playfully. I found her wit amusing. She's just so clever. I didn't want her to worry about trivial things like doing dishes or sweeping floors. Since we were used to going out together, dining at restaurants became a habit. She always picked expensive places, but I didn't mind. Her happiness was my priority. One time, a waiter corrected her when she ordered something not on the menu. Stacy was furious, and when I saw how upset she was, I immediately called the manager and demanded an apology. The proud smile she gave me afterward was worth every penny of the outrageous tip I left. Things became a bit more complicated when Stacy turned 17 and got her driver's license. I gave her late mother's old car as promised, but within a month, she complained that it was outdated and didn't fit her style. I thought it was only fair to buy her a new one. We picked out a brand new SUV, fully loaded, and she promised she'd use it to commute to college and visit me often. Of course, it quickly became her party vehicle, but I let it slide. She's a teenager, after all. What matters is that she's safe. With her newfound freedom, expenses naturally increased. She insisted she needed new outfits for every event, high-quality makeup, and accessories. The $100 weekly allowance turned into $200, then eventually $300. I know it sounds like a lot, but she's my only daughter, and I want her to have everything I didn't. Besides, she's responsible. She uses my credit card only for emergencies, though for her, an emergency might mean a new dress or concert tickets with friends. Stacy also began inviting her friends over more frequently, which I welcomed. I wanted her to feel comfortable at home and enjoy her life. I even allowed her to use my office for private parties, as long as she told me in advance. Once, I had to cancel an important meeting because she needed the space to film a project with her friends. I didn't mind. Work can wait, but moments with my daughter are precious. As time went on, she started hinting at wanting to travel abroad alone. At first, I thought it was too soon, but after some convincing, I funded a trip to Europe for her and two of her friends. It was expensive, but worth it. Stacy came back seemingly more mature, or at least I convinced myself of that. After the trip, she mentioned wanting to live on her own. It was a bittersweet moment. The thought of her leaving gave me a lump in my throat, but I knew I had to support her. I even offered to buy her an apartment, but she laughed and said she wasn't ready to be away from me just yet. Honestly, I was relieved. She's still my little girl. With Alice out of the picture, some family members started voicing their concerns. My sister told me I was spoiling Stacy, and a few friends suggested I needed to set stricter boundaries. I thought their opinions were ridiculous. I wasn't spoiling my daughter. I was just being a good father. They didn't understand the special bond we shared. Alice, on the other hand, kept trying to maintain contact because of our baby. Every conversation turned into a fight about Stacy. Alice claimed Stacy was manipulating me to keep control. When she suggested that Stacy was acting out of jealousy, I shut down the conversation. Last week, Alice messaged me to say our daughter had been born and asked for financial help as she was struggling. I agreed to pay child support, but I made it clear that was all I'd provide. Stacy's well-being comes first, and I can't let anything compromise her stability. While having dinner at an upscale restaurant recently, Stacy mentioned she wanted to start her own clothing line and needed an initial investment. Without hesitation, I transferred a large sum to her and promised I'd always support her dreams. She gave me that proud smile again and said, "I knew you'd help. I'm everything to you, right?" And she was. No sacrifice was too great when it came to my daughter. The baby was born a few weeks ago. Alice sent me a short message with the name and weight. I offered to take full custody, saying I could provide a more stable home, but she refused. Instead, she demanded child support and made it clear she didn't want me involved in our daughter's life beyond financial support. It hurt deeply, but I agreed. There wasn't much else I could do. Stacy was still my priority, and I kept telling myself this was for the best. But things with Stacy started to shift. She had begun dating a boy named Tyler. At first, I thought it was just a typical teenage relationship, but soon Tyler became a permanent presence in our house. He slept over almost every night, left his things lying around, and acted as though he already lived there. And Stacy, she changed too. The decisions around the house seemed to be slipping out of my hands and into hers. At first, I thought it was just a phase. I let the small things slide. The unannounced parties, the times they took over the living room, and even the way she ignored me when I asked her to help with house chores. "Dad, relax," she'd say. "That's what you have the maid for." I laughed it off back then, not realizing where this was heading. Everything came crashing down one night when I came home from work, exhausted, only to find my belongings packed in garbage bags by the front door. "Dad, Tyler is moving in. You need to find somewhere else to stay," Stacy said casually, as if she were discussing the weather. I stood frozen, struggling to process what she had just said. "What? Stacy, this is my house," I protested. She crossed her arms and gave me a cold, defiant look. "No, Dad. You told me this is my house. You promised I could stay here forever. Well, now I'm making the decisions. A knot formed in my throat, and my heart sank. I couldn't believe what was happening. The daughter I had sacrificed everything for was now kicking me out of my own home. "You can't just throw me out," I exclaimed, still hoping I could reason with her. "Tyler doesn't feel comfortable with you here, and honestly, neither do I. But you'll figure something out. It's not like you're homeless." I stood there, stunned, realizing I had lost all control. Stacy held the power now, and there was nothing I could say to change her mind. Swallowing my pride, I called Alice. I thought maybe, for the baby's sake, she'd let me stay temporarily. When she opened the door, her expression was filled with contempt. "So, you finally decided to show up?" I explained the situation, trying to stay calm. I told her I needed a place to stay until I sorted things out with Stacy. Alice let out a bitter laugh. "You're pathetic. You let your daughter walk all over you, and now you think you can come here?" I tried to reason with her, saying I wanted to be closer to the baby and that I regretted how things had turned out. But Alice wasn't having it. "I don't want you here. You made your choice when you put Stacy above everything else. Now you have to live with the consequences." Her words hit like a slap in the face. There was no pity, no forgiveness, just cold rejection. I left her doorstep with whatever dignity I had left and returned to Stacy's house. When I knocked on the door, Stacy opened it with an annoyed look. "You can stay on the couch for now, but the master bedroom is mine." "Oh, and your bed too." The anger boiled inside me, but I swallowed it. I had no other options. Defeated, I dragged myself to the couch and tried to get comfortable. But no matter how much I shifted, sleep wouldn't come. The house that I had worked so hard to pay off felt foreign. I was nothing more than an unwanted guest in my own home. The next few days were miserable. Tyler acted like he owned the place, and Stacy made it clear that my presence was tolerated at best. Every suggestion I made was met with eye rolls or sarcastic remarks. I tried to fit in, but the message was clear: I no longer belonged here. Meanwhile, Alice only contacted me when it was time to collect child support. Her messages were short and cold. Each notification on my phone reminded me of how far I'd fallen. I couldn't bring myself to admit my mistakes. Instead, I blamed Alice. If she hadn't come into my life and disrupted everything, none of this would have happened. Stacy wouldn't have changed. This is all Alice's fault, I thought, clinging to that belief because the alternative was too painful to accept. One night, as I lay on the couch, listening to Stacy and Tyler laughing in what used to be my bedroom, the weight of everything crashed down on me. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by a sense of loss I couldn't escape. I had given Stacy everything, sacrificed my happiness, my future, and even my dignity. And now I had nothing left. But instead of facing the truth, that I had spoiled her and enabled this, I buried the blame deep inside and aimed it at Alice. If she hadn't complicated things, I'd still have my home, my daughter, and my life. It was easier to hate Alice than to admit I had failed. As I lay on the cold, cramped couch, I realized that Stacy had taken everything from me. But the most painful part wasn't losing the house or the bed. It was realizing that the person I had sacrificed everything for no longer cared if I stayed or left. The night after Stacy and Tyler left, I lay awake on the cold couch, feeling everything I had lost. But as morning came, I realized something else. I wasn't done yet. It was time to take back what was mine. No more regrets. No more letting others control my life. That afternoon, I waited until Stacy and Tyler went out. As soon as they were gone, I got to work. I moved all of Stacy's things, her clothes, makeup, everything, into the garage. Tyler's junk followed, tossed out like it belonged in the trash. I changed the locks on the front door and reset the security system, ensuring they wouldn't be able to walk back in. I called the cleaning service and told them to clear out anything else left behind. When Stacy returned later that day, she found the door locked. She pounded on it, furious, as I opened it just a crack. "Dad, what the hell is this?" she shouted, Tyler standing behind her with his usual smug expression. "This is me taking my house back," I said, calm but firm. "You're not welcome here anymore." Her mouth fell open, disbelief spreading across her face. "You can't do this to me." "I can, and I have," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Your things are in the garage. It's time for you and Tyler to move on. She tried to argue, tears welling in her eyes, but I stood my ground. Tyler gave me a threatening glare, but I didn't flinch. This conversation was over. After more shouting and slammed car doors, they finally left, leaving me alone in the silence of my reclaimed home. The weight on my chest lifted, replaced by a quiet, unfamiliar sense of relief. It had been painful, but it was necessary. I sat down in the empty living room, taking in the peace I hadn't felt in months. For the first time, I felt like the man I should have been all along, someone who made decisions for himself. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Alice without thinking too much about it. You were right all along. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I took a stand. Stacy and Tyler are gone. I set the phone down, not expecting a response. This wasn't about winning Alice back. It was about moving forward. Finally, I had taken control of my life, and that mattered more than anything. The next morning, as I drank my coffee, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Alice standing there. She looked different, lighter, almost at peace. Without saying a word, she stepped inside, and we sat down at the kitchen table. So, you finally took a stand, she said with a small smile. It took a while, but I did, I admitted, trying not to let my voice falter. I know I messed everything up, and I'm not expecting you to forgive me. Alice shook her head gently. I'm not here to get back together. I nodded. I had known that was the truth. But I'm glad you did the right thing, she added. For yourself. Now you can start over. We talked for a long time, not about the past, but about what lay ahead. She told me about the baby, her plans, and we shared a rare, calm conversation. No fights, no accusations. For the first time in a long while, we found peace in each other's company. Alice seemed content, knowing I had finally chosen to take control of my life. As she stood to leave, there were no promises of reconciliation, no offers of second chances. Strangely, I was okay with that. She smiled as she reached the door. Take care of yourself, for real this time. I closed the door behind her, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like a blank slate, a chance to rebuild, to start over with a different mindset. As I moved through the house, opening windows to let in the fresh air, I felt grateful. Grateful for finally facing my mistakes, for letting Stacy go, and for understanding that starting over wasn't an end. It was a beginning.